Google's robot car talks its way out of a ticket. Apple apologizes, and privacy tips from Edward Snowden. Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 467 for Friday, November 13th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you all of the ingredients to cook fresh, delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. Welcome, I am Megan Morrone. Let's get to the tech news. Soon, Gmail will alert you if an email message is coming from an unencrypted source. Later in the show, we'll talk to the Register's Iain Thomson about the importance of encryption. Hint, it's important. A Google multi-year empirical analysis of email delivery security showed that inbound encryption is on the rise. More receiving domains support encryption, and more than 94% of inbound messages to Gmail carry some form of authentication. However, the study also found regions of the internet actively preventing message encryption, as well as malicious DNA servers and lots of emails still traveling through the ether in plain old readable plain text. The new warning system will let users know when they're on the receiving end of a message that was sent through a non-encrypted connection. According to a Google blog post, these alerts will roll out in the coming months. In other Google news, one of Google's self-driving cars was pulled over today for driving dangerously slow. According to the Mountain View Police blog, an officer pulled over the autonomous vehicle for going 24 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone and piling up a line of traffic behind it. According to Google, the cute robot cars have their speeds capped at 25 miles per hour. Also, as a whole, the cars have driven 1.2 million miles, or the equivalent of 90 years of experience for an average person. So it's really no wonder they're driving just like your grandmother. Apple has apologized about the way an employee and a security guard recently treated a group of black teenagers from Sudan and Somalia in an Apple store in Melbourne, Australia. The video, which hit Twitter earlier this week, showed the employees telling the students to leave the store because they were afraid they would steal something. The employee and the security guard have been fired, and Tim Cook has sent an email to employees calling this incident unacceptable and promising to retrain leadership in stores worldwide. The New York Times reports that a new service called Callisto will let college students digitally record details of sexual assaults and then decide later if they want to report them to school officials or to the police or to no one. The service comes from a nonprofit software startup in San Francisco called Sexual Health Innovations. Since many sexual assault cases depend on getting the facts straight, the idea behind the online service is that the facts are recorded anonymously, but they're date stamped so the victim can decide later about what they'd like to do about what they've recorded. The tool also features a controversial matching tool that allows students to name their assailant and use their matching service to file a report only if the person they've named has been also named as a perpetrator by someone else. Callisto has raised nearly $400,000 from Google.org and is currently being tested at Pomona College and the University of San Francisco. Coming up, did the FBI pay to hack Tor? And will you pay to puke rainbows? But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. You cannot eat out forever. Believe me, I have tried. But to be a real adult, we all need to know how to cook. Cooking at home means eating healthier and saving money instead of ordering expensive takeout. But where do you start? For less than $10 per meal, Blue Apron delivers all the fresh ingredients you need to create home-cooked meals. Just follow the easy step-by-step instructions. Each meal can be prepared in 40 minutes or less. No overwhelming trips to the grocery store and no more sad takeout. So no matter your dietary preferences, Blue Apron makes it a breeze to discover and prepare dishes like seared steaks and sage brown butter with cauliflower, beet and apple hash, or coconut curry braised cauliflower with aromatic basmati rice and cilantro chutney right in your own kitchen. Cook with ingredients that you've never used before, like watermelon radishes or farro or purple potatoes. Recipes are between 500 and 700 calories per portion. Delicious and good for you. Right now, you can get your first 2 meals free just by going to blueapron.com/twit. Check out this week's menu and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of Tech News Tonight. Earlier this week, the head of the Tor project claimed that the FBI had paid Carnegie Mellon University security researchers $1 million or more to hack the network. Today, the FBI is denying this claim. Joining me to talk about this controversy and to discuss a few of Edward Snowden's privacy tips for average folks is Iain Thomson, reporter and skeptic at The Register. Welcome, Iain.
Well, thank you, Thank you, Megan. That was interesting intro, but very accurate, certainly.
You can call me Morrone if that.
No. I was just like, no, got it.
So can you give us a quick description for those who don't know exactly, just a quick description of what the Tor project is?
Okay, the Tor project was initially actually partially funded out in the US. The whole idea was to build a method of accessing the internet without having to identify who you were or which sites you were going to. It was built basically as a way for human rights activists, for journalists working under repressive regimes, and for those who are privacy conscious to actually get online in an anonymous way. And so far, touch wood, it appears to have worked, although this latest news does raise some interesting questions about exactly how far that goes.
So what do you think about the claim that they're making against the FBI and Carnegie Mellon?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Carnegie Mellon did, in some ways, de-anonymize sections of Tor. The $1 million figure, I haven't seen anything from that apart from people at Tor. Now, they're actually a very careful bunch. If they're going to come out with a 1 million figure, I think they must have pretty good evidence to back it up. But certainly the evidence is there that Carnegie Mellon did manage to de-anonymize sections of the Tor network. They were due to give a talk at Black Hat last year and then pulled it a couple of weeks before on the advice of lawyers, it was said, but it now seems to be maybe under the advice of people who had ongoing investigations using the same techniques.
So now, were they doing it for the money or because they wanted to do research? Why did they do it? I mean, they're not even admitting to doing it, but
yeah,
why do you think they did?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, if the $1 million figure is correct, then they got themselves a bargain, because the précis of their talk at Black Hat said with $3,000 worth of computer equipment and a couple of gigabit Ethernet lines, they could de-anonymize whole sections of Tor. Now, if it's $3,000 worth of computer equipment and the fee was 1 million, I suspect some academics have made an awful lot of money out of this. But at the same time, being able to de-anonymize Tor is one of the great challenges if you are a security researcher. And so there's certainly a level of academic interest in there as well, but it was who was paying the bills at the end of the day.
Right. So, I mean, what happens now? I mean, this is setting a scary precedent a little bit, that the FBI can come in, and just give this money to a researcher to do things like de-anonymize Tor. What's next?
Well, this is the scary question. I mean, if the FBI tried to do this themselves, they would have run into a whole host of regulatory problems. The fact that they took hired guns from academia to do it raises a very worrying precedent, and it's something that a lot of people in the security community are very concerned about. I mean, if you're going to outsource this sort of thing, then there needs to be some kind of regulation. And trusting the Carnegie Mellon University Board of Academic Research to make these kind of decisions isn't something we should really be allowing in a democracy. This comes down to fundamental matters of consent and fundamental matters of evidentiary judicial oversight, which we obviously weren't getting in this. Now, it does appear that there have been some legal takedowns over the case. Silk Road 2 went dark shortly after this research was practiced. A number of other dark websites went down, and an operation by European and US police shut down 414 websites. So the effects are there, but I do think it sets a very worrying precedent. If we're going to do this stuff, we should do it out in the open and with full accountability.
Right. So let's move on. The Intercept published an interview with Edward Snowden this week. Snowden offered some basic privacy tips for the average person. What did he suggest?
Well, number one suggestion was use Tor, and that's looking a little bit outdated already. But it is actually still very good advice, because if you're just using Tor to anonymize your own internet access, and you're not visiting these dodgy sites, then it's a really good way to keep private. But some of the other advice he gave was quite unusual. For example, he recommended the use of ad blockers because it's very easy to inject malware into JavaScript, which is used by an awful lot of advertising sites. Now, that's bad news for people like us who depend on advertising revenue, but at the same time, I can see his security point. I would just say if you do this and you visit sites that you would like to support for advertising, just turn the ad blocker off for those pages. And then looking at more deeper stuff, password manager, using a password manager was a really big part of this, because we all have a limited number of passwords and a limited amount of brain space to actually remember them. And if you're looking to get really secure passwords, you need to be going into double figures in terms of the number of digits, symbols, and letters that you use. So a password manager really does look like a good investment at this point.
Now, he recommended KeePassX, not the one that we always hear about, LastPass or 1Password. Those aren't apparently good enough for him.
Yeah, I hope to goodness he isn't accepting sponsorship with this stuff. I mean, generally the feeling the security industry is that, yes, LastPass is very good. There are a number of other good options out there. There are very few free password managers which come up to snuff as far as people in the security industry are concerned. So you are going to have to pay a little bit for this, but you get what you pay for, and if you get a good quality piece of software, then that can save you an awful lot of trouble further down the line.
Well, yeah, the interview is really interesting. Talks about the interviewer who was part of the whole Snowden. He was the go-between, right, between Snowden and the journalists.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an awful lot of go-betweens between Snowden and journalists, but he is one of the closest people to him, certainly. And it's a fascinating interview. I really do suggest that you sit down and watch it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of really good stuff in there. Using HTTPS Everywhere, which is an EFF-sponsored plugin, I believe, for your browser, which automatically defaults to encrypted communications. That was very, very handy. Two-factor authentication, which, quite frankly, if you're not using, you really should be. I mean, if you haven't got two-factor enabled on all your accounts, you are leaving yourself wide open to attack. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. He also had some advice for people who want to really lock down their security. But I think for 99% of internet users, some of the more extreme methods he's talking about will be more harm than good, well, more trouble than worse, to be honest. But there is a lot of good advice in there.
So for the average person, you think LastPassword or 1Password is sufficient?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, unless you're actually being actively targeted or you're dealing with, then I think that would probably be enough. I mean, the whole essence of security online is to avoid being the low-hanging fruit. The more levels you put out there, so you're further up the tree, the more safe you're going to be. Unless you're targeted by a government agency, and if that happens, then no matter how many protections you take, then chances are you're going to get caught in the end.
Well, Iain, thank you so much for joining us, especially today where there's just so much terrible news coming out of Paris and even more local for you. And I appreciate you coming on and talking to us. Anyway.
No, I wish it was a happier day, but I've always enjoyed being on here with you, Megan.
Well, take care. Iain Thomson is a reporter at the Register, and he is at Iain Thomson on Twitter. Have a good night.
And you too.
Thank you. And finally, the time has come for you to begin paying for your rainbow puke Snapchat lenses, those funny overlays you can add to your selfies to make you look old or scary or insane. Now they're going to cost you. Snapchat introduced the lenses back in September, and they've been switching them out every day, and you never know what you're going to get. But if you're willing to pay 99 cents, you can keep puking rainbows forever. To buy the lens, update Snapchat, then long press your face and scroll past the free lenses. Snapchat says 30 paid lenses will be available every day. You can still use the free ones every day. Also, those 7 will still be there. And don't forget, you can also pay 99 cents to purchase extra replays of those snaps that you want to watch again. And that's it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. We are on Facebook. You can find us. Don't forget to use the number 2. You can like the page, get links to the show when it's posted, and you can watch the video there. We are also on TuneIn and Spotify and YouTube and iTunes and so many other places. And you can subscribe to the show at twit.tv/TN2. You can write to us at tn2@twit.tv. And of course, watch live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today. That's every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I am Megan Morrone. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.